Hi, my name's Alan de Cadenet. I've been driving and indeed racing Porsches for some 30 years now. You know, it never ceases to amaze me how the factory take hold of a basically good design, and over the years they just make it better and better. Take this current specification Carrera that I'm driving today. It is a high-performance sports car that other manufacturers still aspire to, even though the basic design was conceived in the early 60s. If the Porsche 911 is the most recognizable public image of Porsche today, then this is the car that started it all for them. Porsche number 1. This car has a tubular space frame, all-enveloping alley body, and uses many Volkswagen parts. Brakes, steering, headlights, even the engine was tuned to give 40 horsepower and some 85 miles per hour straight line speed. To me, this car today is just as desirable and well proportioned as she was 50 years ago. Porsche never went into production with number 1 because they realized that aluminium bodies and tubular space frames were not cost effective. Production cars had steel press chassis and steel bodies and were recognizable by the split windscreen, like on this early 356 that was presented to Professor Porsche on the occasion of his 75th birthday in 1950. For the next 14 years, Porsches followed their philosophy of modification and amendment, from the 40 horsepower split windscreen to the 60 horsepower single windscreen to the 356C, which had many modifications from the racing factory available, like 4-cam engines, disc brakes, and if you wanted to go racing, of course, you could order one with lightweight alley panels. Porsches were always in business to satisfy their customers.
Porsche as a marque were effectively founded in competition. Competition was inherent within the philosophy which produced Porsche in the first place, because Dr. Porsche, from his very earliest days, had been interested in motoring competition, and he was interested in pure competition on several fronts. It promoted the efficiency of one's engineering against one's rivals. It improved the breed, and above all, as far as Dr. Porsche was concerned, racing was the great banner waver that would provide custom for his company, for his design bureau, and for his own talents. And that became inbred effectively within the Porsche family. And by the Porsche family, I mean, you know, the wider group of engineers that they gathered around them, because the whole company operated as a family. When they were building their cars on that VW base immediately post-war, they improved the breed and they tested it. They tested it at weekends. They tested it at weekends in competition, up hills, in street races, in rallies, ice races, dirt track, you name it, they did it. The whole ethos of Porsche was to produce excellence, and excellence was proven in competition.
Ferdinand Porsche was one of the great automobile designers of the 20th century, creating one of the widest-ranging legacies of any of the original motoring pioneers. He was a man of exceptional vision, designing and developing many innovations that are still utilized today. Ferdinand Porsche was a great advocate of torsion bar suspension. He was the inspiration behind the legendary Mercedes SSK sports car. He designed the first successful mid-engined Grand Prix car, the 16-cylinder Auto Union, and numerous weapon systems. And his master achievement, the original Volkswagen Beetle, which would become the best-selling production car in automobile history. Until his death in 1951, Professor Ferdinand Porsche was always a man ahead of his time. But it was Ferdinand's son, Ferry Porsche, who would be largely responsible for building up the company, from a design specialist to a manufacturer of quality sports cars for a world market. Alongside Ferry Porsche, the other figure who was to play a crucial role in leading Porsche into motorsport was Baron Huschke von Hanstein.
Huschke von Hanstein, as the racing director of Porsche in effect, is a crucial character. He was a good driver. He had won the 1940 Mille Miglia, driving a works BMW, so that he was established effectively before the war. He reappeared post-war with Porsche, again as a very capable driver in his own right. He was a good organiser, was also a good judge of others' driving abilities. He directed the team in a rather avuncular manner, I think, rather more avuncular a manner than perhaps it was demonstrated by Neubauer of Mercedes, who was a much more authoritarian figure. And Hanstein was known to race organisers the world over. He was the voice of Porsche. He was the front man.
By 1953, Porsche realised that to keep competitive in motorsport, they need some purpose-built product. Modifying road cars wasn't really the answer. So the 550 series of Spiders were born. These cars were purpose-built for the job. They had special racing chassis, special bodies made of aluminium, special four-cam racing engines, special gearboxes. And of course, Porsche were in the business of selling their product to their customers. As soon as they got the product developed, they went off and sold it. Huschke von Hanstein was responsible for having something like 100 of these cars built. This is the 550A, and they were sent out all over the world.
Within its class, the Porsche 550 and its ultimate replacement, the RSK series, really became some of the truly great sports cars, sports racing cars of all time. They were light, they were nimble, they were incredibly agile. And certainly with the RSK, they were remarkably powerful relative to their weight. Sterling Moss shared an RSK with Jean Behra in the 1958 Buenos Aires 1,000 kilometres and was just thrilled skinny with the car. He thought it was a magnificent thing. It was enormous fun. Sterling loved being billed as the underdog in any case because his skill was just so great, you know, that he could overcome the essential handicap of having a low-powered, small-capacity car. And he and Behra in that 1,000 kilometres were actually frightening the Ferraris like crazy. You know, they were running, they actually looked likely candidates for an outright victory. And at that time, right up until the 1961 Monaco Grand Prix, Sterling wrote in his diary that that was one of his greatest races.
I remember the 1958 Buenos Aires race pretty well because it was my first introduction, of course, to the RSK, which was a fantastic car. I mean, it really could give the much bigger cars a run for their money, and in fact we did, of course, at that race. It was a car which you could overdrive, and yet it still responded. It was reliable, light, easy, and it really paid off. Wonderful.